Ava Madison. She had really brown hair and looked like my husband.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Welcome to Still a Part of Us. I'm just delighted to be here today. I get to chat with Amy. She reached out to me and just felt like she wanted to talk a little bit more about her daughter. And I said yes. And just in chatting with her beforehand, I'm like really excited because she's my jam. She just super easy to talk to. And I'm so excited for you to talk about your daughter. So welcome, Amy. Amy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about sharing my story with her, especially as many years out. And if we can touch or help or just
Yeah.
support each other, that is my goal.
Yeah.
Every birthday, I try and do something significant in her remembrance. So that's when I wrote you that email, and so your reply to me was just it's magical.
Yeah. I'm so I'm so glad we have this spot for you to be able to celebrate her birthday in a sense. So,
Yes.
okay. Well, Amy, first of all, I like to tell people a little bit about who you are. So can you tell us who you are, what you do, where you're kind of based at in terms of the world, and then can you give us a little bit of a reference on how long ago Ava was born?
Yes. So I live in Michigan, and I have been a hairdresser for a very long time now, 30 years. And Ava was born 16 years ago, in 2008, April the 20th of 2008.
And I just want to say that is I'm I when I saw a little bit about that, I just thought, "Well, I am hopeful." I don't know how else to say it, but I'm always like, "Am I gonna make it through this? Am I gonna survive this?" And the fact that you're 16 years out, it is very hopeful to me. Um, so thank you again. I can't thank you
Yes,
enough.
absolutely. And that is my goal because I remember so vividly from day one, year one, two, three, four. I mean, everything. And you don't feel like you'll make it, but you do.
Yeah,
You really, really do.
yeah. Um, Thank you for saying that. So, Amy, and then tell me what your family looks like at the time of Ava's birth, and then also kind of what it looks like now.
Okay. So at the time, I had a daughter who was 10 and a daughter who was 4. And to that now, the rainbow child that came after Ava is now 13. So
Okay.
I had a daughter 3 years after she passed away.
Okay. So a pretty decent spread between all the kids, and
Yes.
yeah, but still great. Still great. Okay. Well, so tell me, so at the time, you had two other kids,
Yes.
and were you planning on having Ava? Was that a family plan thing that you guys had, or was that a little bit of a surprise?
No surprise planned. In between my first and my second, we suffered a loss at 15 weeks.
Okay.
So we miscarried there. And then that was some time to heal
Yes.
and come
Yeah.
back from that, which I never thought that I would.
Hmm.
I mean, you think that's the most devastating thing in your world at that point,
Yeah.
and then you find out later that there's more
There's
other
worse.
things that
Yeah.
can be devastating. And so then the second one, and then after that, yes, we absolutely were trying to have another child.
Okay. And, any fertility issues at the time, or was it a fairly quick process to get pregnant?
Fairly quick process.
Okay. No issues getting pregnant. Okay, great.
Yeah, on that lucky note, yes, that was never one of our issues.
Yeah, I know, yeah, fertility issues are its own set of
Oh,
grief, and yeah,
correct.
so
Very much so. So I was very thankful that was not one of mine. Very empathetic for those who
yeah,
struggle with that.
yeah. When you found out, did you tell your family? Did you tell your husband? How did all of that go? I don't know if you can remember that far back how that all went down.
Yes, I have one of those photographic memories, which can be a
Oh
blessing and a
yeah.
curse. But yes, immediately I was testing. I didn't feel well. As
Oh.
soon as I found out, I was a person who, even if it was the faintest line, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant. So, and I don't hold much back. So I think everybody pretty much knew
Oh,
real
great.
quick.
Okay, and your other kids definitely knew. They were very much involved.
Yes.
Were they
And
excited?
back then, we didn't do all the like stuff that people do now. Like now,
Right.
it's a huge production. It
Yes,
was
yes.
just told and we moved on.
Yeah. Were your kids excited about that?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, very much so.
it's always fun. Any were you hoping for a boy or girl? Because you already had a couple of girls, right?
Um, yes, I mean, it would have been, I thought at the time it would be nice if we had, a boy just for something
Mhm.
different. I think my husband probably would have been
Yeah.
that, but every ultrasound, he's like, oh, there's the three white lines. He
Yeah.
knew before anybody else knew.
He totally
Um,
is like, I can point it out, yeah.
Yes. But I mean, basically, especially after miscarrying and everything, we just wanted to have a healthy baby.
Yeah. It really makes a huge difference when you're like, we're good with whatever. We just wanted a
Yes,
baby to get here and safely.
correct. Yes.
Yeah, it really, yeah, makes a huge difference. When
Hmm.
so you found out, you told everybody, you don't hold anything back. Did you end up, I mean, it sounded like you were pretty sick too, not feeling great in that first
Yes,
trimester?
I was sick. Every pregnancy, I was very sick.
Oh, okay.
And so, yes, that pregnancy, I was real sick, and I mean the nausea, and I really didn't want to eat, and the vomiting, and the sense of smell where you can smell
And you're
from the
like,
grocery
"No."
store and you're in the parking lot, vomiting because
Yeah,
you can smell the food from the grocery store, somebody's cigarette miles away. So yes,
very sensitive. Yes, I
very
agree.
sensitive. Yes.
Okay, so very sick, and then do you remember, did you go into the doctors fairly early on, say, 8, 9, 12 weeks? I'm not sure what
Um,
the practice
yes,
was.
we tried to, and sometimes they would do the blood test early,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
really didn't want to see you until after the 12-week mark,
Yeah, okay,
generally.
okay.
Yep.
And so you went in there, did you have your regular OBGYN that you went to see, or was it anybody new?
Yes, that was the same gal who had delivered my second.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And how did everything look at that first visit?
I mean, at that time, everything looked great.
Really good.
I was just so anxious at that time too, because of the 15-week loss. We
Yeah,
went in for an ultrasound, and there was no heartbeat at 15 weeks.
yeah.
So when you've already experienced that, every time you would go in, you kind of so to get past that, to get to that point, I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah, you kinda bide your time till the time that you lost previously,
Yes,
and almost hold your breath. I think I would
yes,
totally that happened with us too, so,
yes.
um, okay, so everything is going along pretty well. Did your nausea kind of, get better after a while?
Yes, about the 15-week mark from there, I started feeling good. In fact, it really was the best pregnancy
Oh,
to date that I had had. I struggled so much with anxiety and different issues in the other pregnancies, and this pregnancy, I was happy. It was great. I wasn't really anxious. It really was the best pregnancy that I experienced.
oh, wow. Isn't that funny where you're like, "Huh."
Yes.
Yeah,
That's why our kids were spaced out so far too,
just
because it was
because.
lot for me to take that on.
Yeah.
And during this pregnancy, I was like, I think I could do this again. I think I could do this again, which was very strange that I had that
Be
good of a pregnancy.
Yes, because the previous ones have been so not
Yes,
great. Okay.
yes,
So then, they usually have a 20-week ultrasound or they do the anatomy scan around 20 weeks. So do you remember if it was around 20 weeks or so?
yes, for 20, 21 weeks, somewhere
Okay.
right in there.
Yeah. And did your husband go with you, or at that time was it kind of like you just went and it was fine and
He went to that one with me, yeah,
okay.
because it was the first one, and we were on the fence about finding out the gender of this baby, and we decided not to. So that was the first time that we were like, well, let's have a surprise.
Okay. Really?
Yes.
That that would be hard for some people.
Yes, it was, but I had, we had 2 and I thought we've not done that before and this would probably be our last one and so, let's go old school and
And just be
and not
surprised.
find out. Yes. Plus I didn't want him to see another 3 lines and think, "Oh,
Ah,
wow. I got her and 2 girls and another set of hormones on the way."
wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, that's so fun, and then so tell me how about then how the anatomy scan went. Oh, can I back up one question?
Sure.
So when you had your miscarriage and it was at 15 weeks and there
Yes.
was no heartbeat, was your husband there at that time?
Yes.
Okay, he was there. Okay.
Yes.
So because if I honestly, if I had had that happen and I was alone, I'd be like, you better be coming to any scan and
Yes.
every appointment from here on out kind of a thing.
Yes. Yes. In fact, on that 15 week when we found out, we had to ultrasound the day before. And actually, the next day was my grandma's funeral. And then we were going to the doctor's appointment. And they had said, "Well, we think you might be having twins, right?" So they wanted us to come back the next day.
Oh,
And then you go back to find out that kind of information. It was really not just even, I mean, it's always a shock, but you're
yeah.
going in even more pumped up about that. So
Oh my
yes, it was
gosh.
it was important for me getting past those things
He
that
was
we
there.
went and did it together.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great.
PTSD.
No, no, it is a serious this trauma, it just it stays with you, and so
Yes.
that's why I was asking because I was like,
Yes.
I hope he was there and
Yes.
to take care of you because that I mean for both of you, but
Yes.
it's quite the shock. So, okay, so at the
Mhm.
20-week anatomy scan, so tell me how that went.
Everything was good.
R-
Everything looked
Okay,
good, and I mean, everything that you would want it to be, and
right.
and we didn't find out the gender, and so we were just pretty elated and thinking that we've made it past this point, so we're good to go.
Yeah. You're like just need to make it past that point. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so everything was going really well and how are you feeling in that second trimester?
Great.
No
It
issues
was the
there.
first time ever I felt great. No, and no issues. And actually, because with my first 2 pregnancies, I put on a lot of weight. I was like, "It's pregnant, it's time to
Yeah,
eat." Because
right?
when you deliver
Right.
the baby, the same pants that you're supposed to bring to the hospital fit, which is not really the case. So, number 3, and being a little older, I'm thinking to myself and wiser,
Yeah.
you know, keep myself. I was active. I was always active, but I did not indulge in the dozen donuts, every 3 days as I was with the other pregnancies. And so I carried smaller
Mhm.
this pregnancy than I ever had. And as time went on, people were like, "Are you sure you're that many months? Because you're carrying so small." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just, I just got it down this time." And of course, my doctor never said anything different. I measured and all that. But that was the one thing through the pregnancy that was very different.
Interesting. Okay. So
Hmm.
and you were just you were feeling that so were you carrying smaller because you were thinking that you were like a little bit more healthy and eating
Yes.
better versus like there wasn't any issues like with intrauterine growth restrictions or something like that. Growth restrictions.
There were no tests, no
Okay.
comments, no anything, which I did do that through the first pregnancy. And so I kind of, you just trust that
They're going
as
to
you're going
say
along,
something.
you've already been there. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. Okay, so then, going along, any did you have any sort of baby shower or anything, or you're like, since we don't know, we're gonna just wing it,
Yeah, we did not have showers. I mean, and back then, for the most part, you had one shower in
and
the
that was it.
beginning, and that was it. No sprinkles, no,
Yeah.
all
Okay.
the stuff they have now.
Yep.
So yeah, so we just started to do the room as a baby room, but we really didn't do a lot,
Be-
which ended up being very interesting as well because we did not know. So we didn't really personalize anything.
Right. Okay. That that's so fun. Okay.
Hmm.
And then tell me how, as you were starting to get closer to, into the third trimester and everything, how are you feeling? How are the doctor's appointments? Because they start being a little bit more regular at that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everything I was feeling good. I felt super elated. We were down to the wire. I could not wait. And then, I was busy with a 10 and a 4-year-old. And
Yeah.
so you just and working all the time and, getting through the day and feeling again like I had it down to
Yeah.
the science.
Yeah. Um, and how was Ava as a baby in your tummy? Was she pretty active? Was she how you knew where she was at or anything weird about like an anterior placenta or
Yeah,
anything like that?
she was pretty active all the way through, but there were times that there were movements that were kind of different.
Hmm.
I can't really explain what they were, but I would say to my husband that there's something different about some of these movements.
Mm.
Not that they were slow; they were always consistent, but something felt different, and I couldn't really put my
Hmm.
finger on it.
Okay. And did you bring that up with your doctor about
I
the
did.
movements? And what did they say? Was there anything in particular?
Nope.
Nope.
And her sentiment to me was, "This is number 3. You know what you're doing. You're
And
good."
yeah, you're good. You know, and she's moving, right? She's moving.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, okay. And then just yeah, and then from here on out, let's tell us how things progressed from
Yes.
there.
Okay. So it was close to my 38 week, and I had went for the checkup that week, and I was feeling a little concerned because I was feeling her movement. Well, I did not know she was a girl at that time, but the
Yeah.
movements were more towards my back sides, not so much the strong movements in the front that I
Oh,
I had been used to.
okay.
And so the last doctor's appointment that I had, she was running a couple hours behind. And you just want to get in because I have to
Mhm.
pick up my other daughter from
Mhm.
school, and my mother's there with me, and the 4-year-old, my father's watching, and so you just are kind of like, okay, we have to,
We got to move this along.
and
Yeah.
yes. And by the time I sat there, I thought to myself, well, I should probably ask her for more different things. But
Mhm.
you get in the room and I explained to her the movements and I said, this and that. And she goes, everything is fine. The heartbeat, is fine. Everything is good. You know what you're doing. And this is number 3. You got this.
Yeah.
And so we left. And I believe that was like on a Tuesday. And on Friday of that week, actually, it was my mother's birthday on the 18th of April, my father's on the 21st,
Mhm.
and it was the 18th on that Friday, and I was walking with my sister. It was a beautiful day, and I said, "Something just doesn't always feel right." And because I used to be with the other pregnancy, so much anxiety,
Mhm.
everybody dismissed my anxiety.
Hmm.
It's okay. The doctor told you it's okay. It's just your anxiety. So you say that back and forth to yourself,
Mm.
over and over again,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
again, I'm at the tail end of the
E
pregnancy and
everything's
people
fine.
say, "Oh, the baby slows down, they're so big, their movements are more restricted." And I mean, you dance those things back in your head.
Yeah, you do.
So, on Saturday then, I worked, and I mean, I was so excited because I was getting close and I wanted to have that baby by my parents' birthday and an
Mm.
April birthday. My original due date was May the 1st. So I was so, so, so excited thinking, oh, if I could have, this April baby and have it by my parents' birthday.
Yeah.
And so Saturday I worked all day because I wanted to get as many clients as,
Yeah.
as I could because I would be off. And I started going into labor that evening,
Oh,
late
okay.
Saturday evening.
Okay.
And this time I said to my husband that I wanted to try doing it without the epidural and the whole thing and try and go through labor at home and before I went in.
Mhm.
um and so I labored through the night,
Okay.
and the contractions were very strong, very long, very different, but nothing consistent. Plus we had the 2 girls at home.
Yeah.
It's the middle of the night,
Yeah.
so we'll go in the morning.
Yeah.
If things keep going, we'll go in the morning because
Right.
the other pregnancies I had been in the hospital in and out. We were
Oh,
like,
come back later. You're
yeah,
not there
go back
yet.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is why I was trying something different,
Yeah, okay.
and so Sunday morning, then we got the girls ready, packed their bags with their big sister shirts, took them to my mother's house, dropped them off, and went to the hospital. And I mean, I'm in a lot of pain at this point with the contractions, and they're really not ceasing. And I'm thinking, okay,
I
we're
we're
good to
there. Yeah,
go.
we're gonna yeah.
Yes. And
And about
yet,
38 weeks, right? You're at 38
yes,
weeks now. Okay.
38 weeks.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, it's about 38 and a half at that point. And we went in and went into triage, and I was so uncomfortable. Like, I really thought that I was going to have the baby, like,
Right
right
there.
there sitting in the chair. And they're like, "Oh, it's a full moon, everybody's here." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but
This
something's
baby.
gonna happen in the chair,
Yeah.
right?" So they put me in into triage, and then they go to check me, and they don't even put a monitor on me. They check me physically, and they're like, "You are dilated to a 10. We have to go." So instantly we were like a mad rush,
Right.
everyone.
Yeah.
And we're flying down the hallway in the stretcher, and of course you're always nervous, and in the back of my mind I'm thinking to myself, I just pray that everything is okay, because I have been feeling weird. You know what I mean? Like, with
Mhm.
the movements and all those things. And now
Mhm.
you make it to the finish line. And so we got in the room, and they hooked me up to the monitors. And there's probably like 15 nurses in the room with us.
Mhm. Mhm.
And my husband's standing there, and noise and noise and noise. And all of a sudden, it's just silent. They had the monitor on, and they all just start looking. And I hear a heartbeat. And so I'm thinking, "Oh, whew," you know, but it was not the baby's heartbeat. It
Yeah.
was mine.
Yeah.
And you see the panic on their faces. And they're like, "Well, we're going to get another monitor because this one isn't working."
Yeah.
And so in comes the next monitor, and that one goes on, and nothing. And as that's happening, an ultrasound machine is being wheeled into the room. And I'm looking at my husband, and I mean, his face is as white as a ghost, and he's just staring at me, and I don't even know what's going on at this point. And the contractions really had kind of just like were still there at that moment, but the moment that they put that ultrasound machine on, and they looked and they said, "We got to hurry up and get this baby out. There's no heartbeat." And I'm thinking, how am I supposed to put this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, at this point, the contractions have stopped, and I am completely immobilized. And I said, "Well," and they were like, "We got to do it fast. There might be a chance that, I mean, it just happened. We don't know how long, so we need to like to push." And I don't know how I pushed. There were no contractions.
Oh.
I mean, it was like, I don't know. I look back on it now, and I think her soul went back in and helped to push her vessel out from me,
Yeah.
because humanly, when you've been told that news, you have no will to push, and yet you do. So, so I did deliver, and
How
of
long
course they
how long did the pushing last?
probably about 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. So, yes, very,
It
very
did go
quick.
very quick, yes. And so when they took her out, I mean, I didn't know if I was going to hear. Of course, it was silent. No crying. I didn't know if I was going to hear anything or not hear anything, or maybe there's a chance. And they rushed her over to the little thing when they start setting her up. And my first question was, is it a boy or a girl? Because you wait all those months, and regardless of if the baby was alive or not, that was my child.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know who I had carried, because you talk to them and read them books
Mhm.
and play music and all of those things. Um, and to see her body laying in that, and knowing that she was not alive, the emotions that you have, I can't explain even what that feels like, because it was like the shock and awe, which for me probably was the best case scenario. Um, Others have it different and find out before as you and have to deliver.
Yeah.
For me, it probably was the best case scenario, because I just, again, we spin it pretty positive to
Yeah.
make it through
Yeah.
with our coping mechanisms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, at first, I didn't want to hold her. I didn't know what to do. I was so and I felt like I let my husband down. The guilt of I must have done
Yeah.
to cause this.
Yeah.
And that is such a real emotion. And I didn't chew a piece of gum during that pregnancy that had
Artificial sweetener. Yeah.
correct. Yes, nothing. And the look on his face. And then we talked about having to call my parents and tell the girls and the emotions that I let everyone down that it was my fault and yet trying to focus on my own just grief and bewilderment. um and so they did hand her to my husband, and he held her. And my husband usually is more of the passive in a lot of arenas in their life. um and I was very kind of surprised that he just took charge, because that was the one time I couldn't. And so we looked at her, and she was little. She weighed only 4 pounds 3 ounces.
Oh, she was
So
little. She was really
yes,
little.
so there was something along the lines, which now made sense with how small. You know how you
Yeah.
know now you know information, so
Yeah.
you flash all those things back in your mind of, oh my gosh, that's why I was. Everybody said I was so small, and all these things. But regardless, she was so beautiful.
Hmm.
She was just a little peanut. She was so
Yeah.
cute, and she so looked like my husband. and
Really?
and because I'm a hairdresser, I'm all about the hair.
You gotta
Geez,
pay
that's the first
attention.
thing I remember, right?
Exactly.
Always looking for the hair. Um, and they put the caps on them, and
Yeah.
everything right from the beginning. So, but I could see her hair, but I was really having a hard time embracing looking at her. They did end up thinking that she had probably passed a few hours prior to me delivering her.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so when that happens, changes already start to happen in
Yeah.
utero. So there were some things that, were going on
Mm.
with her body that did not make it look like she just was
Yeah.
newly born.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a catch 22, because as much as I would have loved to unwrap her and see everything, just to see her,
Yeah.
um, it made it difficult to do that. I was kind of afraid.
Yeah. And for those who are not familiar with stillbirth as much, do you wanna tell us kind of some of the things? 'Cause I'll tell you for my son, there's kind of the skin slippage. There's just not the
Yes,
tension, and so, any sort of touching or even, friction can cause
yes,
their skin to break off or to slip a little bit, and then it
correct.
starts looking really hard to see, I think.
Yes, it is. And her lips had already changed
Turned
to
okay.
dark. They were dark. And some of her skin and under her eyes started to be somewhat dark.
Okay.
Um, yes, and so her skin, yes, there was skin that was it's so fragile.
So
It's
fragile,
so
yeah.
thin, and plus they've been in water for so long
Mhm,
too, right? And
mhm.
so yes, there are different appearances that you certainly are not prepared for
No,
by
not one
any
bit,
means.
not one bit.
No.
And it's funny, well, it's interesting that, like you said, it was the best case that you basically didn't know until you were pushing.
Yes.
And I think that that was one of the things that, like, knowing that, oh, I was gonna have a stillbirth baby and having some preparation even for that, even just a few hours, right,
Yes.
does help just a tiny bit,
Yes.
in preparing for maybe what the baby's gonna look like, and
Yes. Yes. I mean, there's so many different stories and so many different ways. I think for my anxiety's
mm,
sake, that was probably better just because of the way that I function.
yeah.
Yet in retrospect, I did miss out on a lot of opportunities
Mhm.
that I wish that I would have had
Yeah,
had I been more prepared.
right.
But you do the best you can with what you're
Mhm.
working with in the circumstances, and
Yeah.
that's what you have to remember, because during those moments of pure survival,
Yep.
you make the best decisions that you can with what you're working
Mhm.
with.
Mhm. Your husband held Ava. Did you end up ever holding her?
I did,
Okay.
I did hold her, but it was not for very long. I felt the longer I held her, I could not leave without her,
Yeah.
and I knew I was going to have to.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I could not connect on that level,
Mm.
because at one point I thought, I'll get up and take off out of the hospital with her. I don't know where I go or what I'll
Yeah.
do, but this is my child and I'm not going to leave her here.
Yeah.
And that was, yes, that, so I kind of held back feeling attached. He would hold her, and would sit next to me, and I would look at her and I would, touch her. Um, but I did not really take a lot of time to hold her. And then there were times when I asked them to take her out of the room because I just couldn't even wrap my mind around what was going on. And I literally felt like I was going to just freak out.
Yeah.
Babies were being born in the rooms around me. The excitement down the hallway of people so excited, and the rooms behind you, the screaming of the babies coming out, and you're sitting there. It is, yeah,
Yeah.
so there were times I asked, if they would just take her for a while, because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. It is
And
hard to hear.
physically,
Yeah.
I just gave birth. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, how were you doing? You pushed really for 10, not very long, and you
Yes.
were at a 10 already, and, how was your body doing? Was it doing okay? Did you tear? Did you
I did not
Okay.
have any real physical issues as
Okay.
far as that went, so that was a blessing.
Yeah.
That was a blessing.
Yeah. And she was also so little too, so that
Yes,
probably helped
that was a
considerably.
blessing.
Yeah.
I thank her.
Yeah.
I do thank her for being petite, and yes, and helping mama out with that one for sure.
Uh,
Yes, absolutely. Some of the other ones not give me the same benefit, but she was very
yeah.
gracious to her mother in that way. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So then were there any things that you did? I know that you said that you touched her on occasion. Was there
Mhm.
any things that you did or maybe the nursing staff or doctors encouraged you to do while you had her?
Um,
Pictures or any handprints or anything? I Because once again, this is 16 years ago and it's really thankfully there's a lot more things that we do to try and preserve
yes.
memories. And so I don't know what was offered to you at that time.
Yes. It was a Sunday, and unfortunately, there was a lot of the regular nursing staff and
Mhm.
like the ones who do the grief work like that were not there that day.
Okay.
Um, the couple of nurses that were there were great, and they did bring us cameras, the disposable cameras,
Oh,
and so we did take a lot of pictures, which
great.
that was great. And she wasn't covered during those times and stuff, so whether I took them or didn't see or not, at least I have those. they
Yeah.
they did her footprints
Oh, good.
in the mold, and so they did that, and they trimmed her hair and
Oh,
put that in a
put some
container for
oh,
me.
good.
So yeah, so I
So
have
you
I
the
have the
hairstylist
yes,
has her hair?
I have the hair.
Mhm.
And it was such the shock. And again, I wish that I would have done more. My parents did come up.
Oh, good.
I did not have my daughters come up. I wish that I would have,
Mhm.
but I didn't know how to handle that. And I didn't want them to have that burden,
Yeah.
and explain that on them. Again, I didn't have a lot of time to think. Um, and so, I mean, basically, those were the things that we got. They gave her a cap, and an outfit and stuff like that. And the sad truth of it is, all fits in a small bag,
Yeah.
a little tiny like gift bag,
Yeah.
and that's what you're going to walk out with. And they had a grief counselor come in, or a chaplain, and they want to know, what do you want to do for a funeral, and you want to do this and you do that. And I'm like, I have no clue.
Yeah.
It's been an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I came here to have my third child, and I'm traumatized, and I'm physically not. I mean,
You just
I
had a
was
baby.
fine, but just had a baby.
Yep.
Um, and I don't know how to answer any of those
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
And so I wish that I would have known more, and if the other staff would have been there, that we would have had a little different direction to that. So it was just kind of one of those days where things just did not really play out the best case scenario for having her that way on that day. But in all, I feel happy with everything that we did get
Good.
and that we did have,
Great.
because those are just precious. So I
Yeah.
took the feed out last night to take pictures for you to put on here,
Thank
and
you.
my husband and I were looking, and it's like you don't look at stuff the same way as you did. And periodically we'll bring everything out to show my other kids or the grandkids
Hmm.
or whomever and talk about her. And but to lay them out and really look at the bottom of her feet, it was like, oh my gosh, look, those little toes, and
Yeah.
oh, just so very sweet. So what we do have is wonderful, and I'm so thankful that we have that. That's a huge blessing to us.
Yeah.
Um, but again, you second guess everything when you're going
Hmm.
through,
Yep.
and for a long time,
Yeah.
and then you're really just happy for what you have.
Yeah. That is so, so true. You said they were asking a lot of questions about what uh, one question before I ask that question.
Yes.
When she came out, did the doctors and the nurses say anything that gave them the impression that of maybe what happened to her?
No, and my doctor did come in about an hour and a half after I had her. She was not there at that time. They had called her, but of course everything went so fast.
Right.
She wasn't up there.
Yeah.
Um, and so just looking at her, and I seen the look on my doctor's face, which I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. I could not blame her.
Hmm.
I was not angry at her. The look on her face was so distraught, and her looking at me as well. And they asked if we wanted an autopsy, and I declined. I did not want to know any more than what I already knew.
Yeah.
I had seen enough. I didn't want any other answers. I'm a very spiritual person, and I believed that the way that things happened were the way that they were meant to happen. And I just didn't need any more information.
Okay.
So,
So there were
yeah.
no answers. There was nothing like super evident about the placenta or the cord or
No,
anything.
no placenta, no cord, anything, just the
No,
fact
everything
that
was
she was small.
that was
Yes.
yeah the
And
only
so
indication.
somewhere there, yes, so somewhere there was, a delayed, and I don't know why. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I didn't want to know any more than what I had at
Mm-hmm.
that time.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Because it replays,
Yeah.
and I was good.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
good with what I was working with.
Yeah. Exactly. And you're like, I've had trauma. I need to.
Yes. I
And
got enough in my head. I don't want to hear
yeah.
anymore. Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you got to do the right thing for you. And I think that, like you said, you struggled with anxiety in previous pregnancies, and this
Yes.
would be another maybe point of creating more anxiety for you. And so,
Correct.
yeah,
Yes.
your parents were able to come up. Was there any other people that came up and met
My
her?
sister.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Yes, my sister did, and we had the priest, from our parish, who was our close,
Oh,
family
good.
friend. He came up and held her and anointed her body, and did all of those things.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yes, that was very important to me. So
Yeah.
that was huge in
Okay.
itself.
Um, and so you did have somebody like you said, a grief bereavement person that came in.
Yes.
Um, I know those questions are I don't think they realize how overwhelming those questions are, especially when you're like, I am in my, 20s, 30s, early 40s maybe or something like that. And you're like, I
Yes.
did not think I was going to be planning a funeral at my age. And so
Yes.
what did you and your husband decide on doing? Um,
Well, uh, yes, those questions were so difficult, and some of the words that they said, when you are in that zone,
yeah.
I know people are well intentioned, but I really struggled with comments that come when
Yeah.
you are in a state like that. But we ended up deciding, they said that there was a service through one of the local funeral homes, that when a couple loses a child, miscarriage or stillbirth, that they will do a funeral service at no expense. And they have a place that they take and bury them and everything. And
Okay.
so, but you are not to be there the day of the burial.
Oh,
So we still have a funeral for her,
I see.
but not for her body.
Yes. Okay.
Um, and at that time, that was okay with me because again, I had a really hard time with leaving her
Yeah.
anywhere. So that's what we opted to do, and then we walked out with the bag, and then we did have a funeral a couple days later at the church that we belonged to,
Hmm.
and we did pictures of her that we blew up and put the little like
Oh.
music box that the animal, was music box was in the animal,
Hmm.
um by her picture. And so we did have the full funeral just without her body.
Gotcha. How long can I just say from the time that you gave birth till you ended up leaving? How how long was that? And I guess how long did you have her with you? Because that decision to have her out of the room, you mentioned that you asked her to
Yes,
be taken out of the room on occasion. So I'm just wondering how long you had her, how long you were in the hospital, just kind of a
5 hours.
5 hours.
I needed to leave.
Yes.
They were keeping me in that room, and hearing those babies crying. And they said, somebody told me, I don't know, I think it was my sister, that there was the black butterfly on our door, and they were not going to move me. They were going to leave me in that room, and it was like a torture chamber. I mean, I can't you hearing the excitement of people going down the hallways, and I'm so happy for them. I want nobody to incur what we've been through. But listening and knowing that I was leaving after 10 months, and all of that with nobody, and feeling the guilt and feeling the shame, and walking out as people were looking at me, and you you don't have a baby, they're not looking at you the same way as when you walk out when you're in the wheelchair with the
Yep.
balloons and everything. And yet I want to yell, I just had a
Yeah.
baby, and her name is Ava. And yeah, so 5 hours, and
5 hours.
I had to leave.
Oh. Yep. You just yeah. Um I also wanted to make sure that we got to know a little bit about Ava. So she was 4 pounds 3 ounces.
Yes.
Do you know how long she was?
18.5 inches.
18.5 inches. And
Yeah.
when you met her, you knew that she was a girl. This was your child.
Yes. Yes.
How did you guys decide on the name Ava Madison?
Amy with 3 letters and an A, and so I had asked my husband so many times, I'm like, "I love the name Ava, love the name Ava," and he was like, "Okay." He just said, "Okay," one time during the pregnancy. I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Wow." So I was in. I just love that name. All of
Yeah.
my daughters have strong A's at the
Oh,
last part of their names, and so
okay.
that was it. Plus, this was really special for me because it's an A,
Yes.
and it's 3 letters,
Mhm.
and, that's gonna be, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was, yeah, and Madison was just a name that I absolutely love, so,
Yeah, it's a cute
yes,
name. And Ava Madison
yes,
just sounds nice together, so
yes. Yes, 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 so, yes, and her day was April the 20th, which fell right between my mom and
You're
dad's birthday, and
exactly.
20 is my birthday in September, so we had the same
Yeah.
number. We had the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of really special, special things about her and that day that were such a gift to me,
Yeah.
regardless of whether I had her body with me or not. She's my
Mhm.
very special child, and I feel she's with me all the time, and she helps me. So does the other ones I
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
Helps
Yeah.
me raise the ones that are here.
Those ones can be tricky.
Yes, I have many joked many times and said she's my best one. Ava's my best one because I have a 26-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 13-year-old
Yep.
now. So Ava really is at the top of the charts.
Yep, you've raised 2 of them through teenage years, so that's good, and
Oh,
early
yes,
adulthood.
yes, Yes.
And another teenager right now.
Yes, and 3 grandchildren,
Oh,
so yes, yeah.
that's wonderful. That's
Yes,
wonderful, your
yes,
family. So,
yeah.
um, and anything I'm curious if there was anything that your, husband said or commented about Ava or anything that he remembered, from that time with
Yes,
her in the hospital.
he really, I said that her spirit came through him because he really stepped up to the plate with
Mm,
taking care of the girls and, phone calls and all the things that
yeah.
normally I would do, and I would tell him, I'm like, she gave you a gift of that." And, I mean, he's a very sentimental,
Mm,
very sappy, cries at the country songs about the daughters, leaving the daddy and all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. And now when we talk about her, it's like we shared that experience. We've been together for, a long time now, and it's
Mhm.
like we shared that very special experience together with her. That part of having that child together and going through the grief
Right,
and all of those
right.
things. And it is challenging and it can tear you apart, but it can also bond you
Yeah,
in a
even
way that
you
no one else
mhm.
can understand. Yes,
I completely agree with you on that. It is so
yes,
amazing. Yes, it can totally rip you apart and people get divorced. I understand that, but
yes, yes,
to also weather the storm together really that there's something very bonding about that.
yes, because you two are the ones who loved that child and
Yeah.
had every dream and you were in that together, you and your spouse alone.
Yeah.
Um, in those feelings. Other people, my mother and everybody had them, but that was our girl,
Yeah. Yeah.
our child, and even though physically she's not here,
Still the
that's
case.
still our child.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely, and all the experience that we shared, and every year talking about her or sending balloons off or whatever it is that we do, it's that's our child, our big part of our family.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So you got out of there basically. So did you end up you left at 5 hours essentially after you gave birth, which is nuts. Like,
Yes,
I keep thinking,
yes.
I was like, "That is nuts." Like,
Yep.
I
I've been described nutty
well,
for a long time,
uh,
but yes, it was nutty, but I had to go.
but you had to go. I mean, like, and that's the thing. I don't know if people realize that there's this need of just like, I wanna stay as long as I can, but then you're like, "I gotta go. This is not normal. Just doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel
Yes,
like it is so bizarre. It just feels so
yes,
bizarre."
yes,
So I can
yes,
understand your feeling of like, I gotta get out of this place. Like,
yes,
um, so did you give her back? Did you say goodbye when the time was come, or did a
yes.
nurse come and grab her? Like, how did that go?
We spent our time with her, and then we gave her back. And honestly, right at the moment, I cannot remember if they took her from the room before we left, or if I feel they must have took her from the room um, when we left.
Yeah, that's
Before we left, because I don't think I could leave her in the room
in
and
the
then
room.
just walk out.
Mhm, mhm, yep.
I wanted to turn around, and, each time they take her and bring her back and you hold them, if you had that experience or if anybody else has, they're cold,
Mhm.
and it's just a whole different.
Feeling. Yep.
Yes, yes,
It's hard as a mom who wants to keep their kids warm and
yes,
protected and safe.
yes.
It is hard to feel their cold body.
Yes, it is. The trauma is because that's supposed to be the happiest time of your life. People don't talk about that. Your baby showers are happy, and pregnancy is happy, and birth is happy, and everything is so wonderful, and nobody can comprehend that. For some of us, on different occasions, it is not that way,
It's
and
yeah.
and you can't wrap your mind because it's like you've been told this your whole life. It's happy, happy. It's just
Yeah.
pure happiness.
It is not that
and
way
and you get
sometimes.
dropped to the bottom of the thing and you're like, wait a minute, how do those two things don't correlate?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're traumatized for years later, for years
and
after.
and you are, but I have to say that trauma is there. But even when my oldest started having her children, that I worried about that for years with having daughters.
Mhm.
And her first pregnancy, I was very, very overly concerned. And when she went to deliver, I panicked
Yeah.
and until I knew everything was okay. But she also had two children since my grandson, and I am happy the whole pregnancy, and I am not full of anxiety. And I really embrace and enjoy and prepare each time,
Yeah.
and it went away. It went away. I mean, it's mild. It's not what it was,
Yeah. It takes time.
and that's such a gift. Yes, and time is never the answer we want, but time is the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went home that day and what time was she born exactly?
8 o'clock, 8:40, somewhere around there in the morning on that Sunday morning.
Okay, okay. So 8:40 and then you guys left afternoon and got home
Yep, yep.
and
3, 4 o'clock, we were out.
saw your kids and everything and did you talk to them about what had happened or anything like
Yes,
that?
yes,
It's probably
yes.
a tough conversation.
It was a yes. And my mother did not handle, that news very well
Yeah.
for her. Um, and so I mean, I just tried the best I could to answer them. But at that point too, you're kind of like in this whole different space in your head. It's so bizarre. One minute you're relieved that you're not pregnant anymore, then you realize that the
Actually,
baby isn't there, which then you have that another set of mixed emotions, then explaining, to the kids and then them sitting with you, then you feel guilty that you're
yeah.
not holding the other.
Mhm.
It was very difficult. And I just remember them being very quiet,
Mm,
very, very quiet.
yeah.
And I did get books that said, when the baby doesn't come. And,
Yeah.
there was a lot of books at that time, kids' books that I
Kind
would
of.
read to them to try and
Mhm.
make it helpful. Yeah. But I mean, how much can you explain?
Mhm.
Their grief to me was worse than my own,
Yeah.
and I didn't have answers for that.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't, and that's the way it is.
Right. Yes.
You then had the funeral service a couple days later after you
Yes.
came home, right?
Yes. Hmm.
You do want to tell me a little bit about that and um
It really was it was beautiful. I remember getting dressed the day for that, and so surreal. And of course, none of my clothes are fitting
no,
right at this moment.
nope.
And it's April 20 something, and it's rainy, and it's humid, and I'm sweating and trying to put clothes on, and I forgot all about the milk coming in, so my breasts are
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
and sore, and nothing is fitting. I don't want to put pregnancy clothes back on,
Yep.
and I don't want to put other clothes on. I wore this rain jacket. I remember wearing this rain jacket and zipping it as tight as I could to bind everything.
Yeah.
And just thinking, I'm going to my daughter's funeral. Like, this is not, the house is getting prepared, and you got the stuff for Easter and the flowers, and I can't wait till the baby comes. And now we're going to the funeral. But and it was strange because everybody you hug hugs you so tight, and that's wonderful. But you are leaking milk, and
Yeah.
you're like a constant reminder,
Yeah.
of what's really going on. Um, our family friend, the priest, he did a beautiful, beautiful service, and said the most wonderful things about her. I felt that she was peaceful, whether we were not. I knew that she was peaceful, and I was thankful that we had the funeral.
That is wonderful. I'm so glad that that turned out beautifully
Yes,
and
it did.
that you felt that she was peaceful, like you said.
Yes,
I like that.
yes.
So, and he did this, or anybody else got up and said any
We
words or
did. We
anything? You
we all
did?
took
Okay,
turns.
good.
Yes. Yep. We all wrote something and took that. I mean, that's our one and only chance.
Yeah,
That was our one and only chance. So we did it,
good.
and I'm so glad that we did. But yeah, we all got up and took turns, and the kids and everything, because it was important. And people don't want to talk too much about this,
Mm-mm.
so you have to explain that that baby had a life,
Mhm.
and it was not just another pregnancy and not just, the baby that that was our child, and she was somebody.
Yeah. Yep.
It will always be
And
somebody.
will always be somebody.
Yes,
Very much so.
yes.
Amy, thank you so much for sharing Ava's story. I keep thinking of like how would have that been like to be so excited to go to the hospital, like you said, and expect that it to be a joyful day, and it turns out very suddenly to be
Yes.
not, and to be shocked with that. And um but what sounds like you were able to see her for even just that short time, and feel like she's very much a part of who you guys
Yes.
are. Oh, thank you so much. Is there
Oh, absolutely.
any last things that you want to tell us about her, or anything that we may have missed during her story?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, it is not the happiest of stories
Yeah.
that happened, but it is happy about her. And my
Mhm.
pregnancy was amazing,
Mhm.
and it was to have that feeling and be so excited during a pregnancy for me was the best gift of my life when it came to pregnancy.
Yeah.
So that time I had with her for me was so special. I mean, right from the first moment, even the sickness,
Yeah.
that's special because that baby is in there with you.
Yeah. Hanging out for
And
that
so,
long.
yeah,
Yep. That's beautiful. I love you pointing that out, because we think that, oh, we didn't have any time with them, and actually
oh no, we had
you had
time.
a lot of lovely time with her, and
Yes,
she
yes, absolutely. Those midnights where the kicks are coming and you're and you're peeing your pants and
Yep.
you're like,
All of
hello,
it.
Yes, yes,
Oh, that is beautiful. I love that you highlighted that, just the time with her, and that was such a gift for you. So
yes.
thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing Ava's story with us, and
My
for
pleasure.
sharing your heart too, because this is hard stuff, and we appreciate it so much.
Oh, I appreciate it too very much. It is my pleasure.